Peace, peace, everyone. It's the girl Sequoia Blue back on this beautiful Saturday. Happy to be here. Today's guest is Heather Claus, and she's the author of the book Take No Shit, Build Better Relationships Through Discovering and Creating and Maintaining Healthy Boundaries in Three Simple Steps. That's a boss move. So what is boundaries for people who don't know? Because some people are like, well, what is boundaries and what I need to do?
That's a really good question because a lot of people who have heard the word boundaries, right? A lot, because it's kind of a buzzword on social media right now. Um,
Yeah.
they kind of get the wrong impression. Like a lot of people think boundaries are, I don't want that, no, or stop. And I look at boundaries as a more holistic thing. So to me, boundaries are what separate who you are and what you want to prioritize and protect in your life, and who is other people and their responsibilities and what you want less of or don't want in your life. Like it's that line between I'm willing to take responsibility for all this and all that, not for me.
I like that because sometimes we have to be a little bit selfish as far as things that we want, or we get walked over and then you wonder, why am I sad? Oh, because you
Yeah.
just let somebody walk all over your life and you didn't speak up. So when you say take no bullshit in your book, like you're basically saying, not in a way where you're being rude, but when is it okay to say no? Like if you don't want to go to that party, it could be something small as that, you
Always
know?
okay to say no if you don't want to go to that party. I mean, even there are exceptions, of course. Like if it's a work function and you kind of have to be there in order to bring in that paycheck, okay, there's definitely some wiggle room in there. However, when you said selfish, and I'd like to touch on selfish because I think that selfish is a very critical word because a lot of people, especially when we're young, we are taught that when we start to exert our boundaries that we are being selfish or mean, or we need to just go along to get along, or if you keep acting like that, this was my grandmother, you'll never find a man, right?
Mm,
Or whatever it is. And selfish, focusing in on the self, to me, I think that selfish is only a negative thing when who you are is mean or spiteful
mm,
or whatever. But if you're a selfish person and one of your priorities is to love and be loved, then there's nothing wrong with doing that because you're out there loving people and, wanting to be loved, right? So selfishness, I think, is more focused, in my opinion, on what are your priorities? Because,
mm.
if your priorities are whack, then your selfishness is going to be not so good.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because you can't go into a situation not be self-aware neither, and then you're not knowing what the heck your boundaries are. Like, what is doing bound? Like, why I'm doing it the wrong way in a toxic way?
Yeah.
Like, and especially for like relationships, because it says that you was an abusive relationship,
Yeah.
and it did that spark you to create this book about boundaries?
Well, it actually sparked me to take a good long look at who I was as a person that
Mm,
led to me accepting that abuse, not
mm,
leaving the first time, not leaving the second time, not leaving the third time. I spent 15 years with him. And who
mm,
I was as a person had crappy boundaries, right? So
yeah.
I had to figure that out. Now, that was over 15 years ago for me now. So, over those 15 years, I have spent a lot of time looking at who I was then, who I want to be moving forward into the future, and finding the ways to align my life and my values and my boundaries with who I want to be. And honestly, like when I came out of that relationship, I had no clue, like most of us, right? We end a relationship,
Hmm.
we're like, what happened? Like, where do I go now? Like, even if it
Mhm.
was bad, will I ever find anything like that again?
Yeah.
You know, right? Like,
Yeah.
I was there, but I thought in my mind, I had this idea of something better.
Mm.
And fast forward now to where I am in my life, and better doesn't even cover it. Like, I could not have imagined what life can bring back then. Like, it just
Mm.
my creativity. I mean, of course you could do like the fairy tales, right? The princes and the
Yeah.
dragons, and live happily ever after and that. But I could not have realistically imagined what being in love and having an amazing partner and amazing people in your life and so on and so forth could
Mm.
really be, because I'd been told that, you know, I was too unrealistic. Nobody could live up to my
Mm.
expectations. Like, there ain't no man who's going to be that romantic and
Yeah.
also be a good man and not, do this and not that.
Mm.
We've all heard it.
Yes, we have.
And that's how the world chips away at our boundaries.
Man, I'm telling you, because that's a big topic right now. I mean, I'm a curious person, so I'm always all over the place reading about what's going on. And they're always telling women, no, you can't do this, you can't get this when you're over 35 and all this stuff is going on.
That's some
And
bullshit.
even jobs when it comes to jobs or anything. And I'm just like, really? I'm
Well,
thinking I should be, it's the best time to get in a relationship is 35 and up because then you're more mature, you know what's going on, you may know who you are more, you may know how to fix it better,
yeah,
you
yeah. I
know?
will tell you this. I met my partner 2 weeks before I turned 40, and I just turned 50 this year.
Oh,
And
wow.
I am still deeply in love with him. We are incredibly passionate. We have an amazing relationship. We've set good boundaries, and sure, there's been hiccups. Like every relationship, you go through
Yeah.
some growing pains, and
Mhm.
there's changes and stuff. But it is absolutely like the 30 is not the end of the world, 35 is not the end of the world, 40 is not the end of the world. Like if my partner got hit by a bus today, I wouldn't think that 50 is the end of the world, right?
Mhm.
They We have the opportunity to prioritize what's important to us in our lives. And there are joyful, amazing people out there with good boundaries, because that's,
Mhm.
to me, this is how you maintain the joy,
Yeah.
right? Boundaries are how we protect who we are and what's important to us, so that when others come into our lives, we have the resources to
Mhm.
really like engage with them, to really love them, to really show them that they matter
Mm.
to us. If we're
Yes.
constantly giving away everything, or letting people stomp on our boundaries, or letting somebody into our life to stay who doesn't really fill us up or make us happy, that's taken up all those resources. That's taken up all that space
Mhm.
that somebody else could be taking.
Yes, I totally agree. I mean, because I'm thinking like it could be a confidence issue as far as with people. Like
Oh,
they really can't set those boundaries because of confidence issues. What advice do you give someone that's like, man, I don't feel like I feel like I'm a nobody, whatever, and I don't
mhm.
got this job and I don't got this. And I see this a lot on YouTube, TikTok, and they be like, I feel like a nobody. I don't have this job. And you know, I how can people get that confidence back? I mean, I know there's coaching, there's medicine, but you know,
So, I mean, well, first I could say buy my book. No, no. I
yeah.
also have an app called Take No, and then it's star 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 star, because you can't say take no shit on an app title in
Oh
Google
man.
or Apple Play, right? So Take No star 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 star. It's on iOS and Android. It's a daily boundaries journaling app,
Mm,
and it is free. And all it is every single day you'll get a random prompt asking you about boundaries, and you can journal, and you can either keep it private, or you can make it public to the feed and share it with others and see what others have posted about their boundaries. And then you can reach out and chat with them or whatever. If you see something that you're like,
Oh.
I'd really like to know more about what you said here. Right? It's all about, all it
Mm.
is focused entirely on boundaries and thinking about it. But here's the thing. In my book, I talk about 3, sometimes 5 simple steps. And
Mm.
these are key. So the first step is you have to set your boundaries. That's where like the journaling app comes in. That's where the book comes in. In the book, I ask over 150 questions. And
Mm.
they're fun questions. Like I boundaries is a really deep topic. So I like to have
Mhm.
some fun with this, right? But I ask over 150 questions to get you thinking about, well, gosh, what are my time boundaries? What are my
Mm.
sexual boundaries? What are my emotional boundaries?
Mm.
Like, how do I even know before going into this? The second
Mhm.
step is saying it, how to communicate your boundaries, right? And
Mm.
not how to say, you got to stop there. Why are you even doing that? That's mean. That like, don't do that. Like, but saying, hey, like, I don't like that nickname. My ex called me that nickname and we didn't have a great relationship. And your partner would be like,
Mm.
well, I don't want you thinking of your ex when you're with me. So like,
Yeah.
not going to call you that, right? Like, so say it. Step 3, if all goes well, this is the last step, and that's review it. Check to see, did it work? Like, did they step off?
Mm.
Did they say, I'm going to make a change? And they started putting forth effort, whatever. If you didn't get quite what you needed out of saying it the first time, step 4 is you repeat it, right? You sit
Mm.
down and you say, hey, this is really important to me. Is there anything I can do to like help you understand why I don't like this nickname or why this upset me or whatever, right? And
Mhm.
then if things still don't change over a period of time, because like sometimes, people do things out of habit and it takes a while
Yeah.
and some reminders to like get them. So you set a time, right? Like how long is this going to take? How important is this to them? How difficult might it be to change? Whatever. If they still don't change,
Mhm.
then step 5 is all about your boundaries and your personal power. Change. You can change what you accept. You can change your relationship. You can change how you react. You can change, like, you can take a different direction in your relationship and see if they follow you, whatever. You have the power to create change. Now, going back to
Mhm.
what you were saying, because all of this sets this up, start small. Right?
Mm.
Start with small boundaries, little teeny tiny things that don't make a whole lot of difference, but self-esteem is esteeming yourself, right?
Mm.
Confidence
Yeah.
is built on self-esteem. So, how do we esteem ourselves? We say what we're going to do to ourselves, and then we do it. We
Mm.
say, I'm going to set this boundary, and then we follow through. That is how we build our self esteem, by protecting ourselves and what's important to us. So, something simple. Let's say you have kids, right?
Mm.
Time boundaries with kids is critically important. I am going to set aside one night a week that I always spend with my children.
Mm.
We might go out to a museum. We might stay at home and play board games. We might cook a meal together. That night is sacrosanct. That night
Mm.
is for my children. Work does not get in the way of that. Other dates don't get in the way of that, right? Like me being tired does not get in the way of that. That night is for my children, right? And then
Mm.
you do it. It That's kind of big one because you're talking, one day out of 7, but still, like, setting
Mhm.
this aside. Maybe you just say, I am going to give my child, 3 hours a week, and they get to pick those 3 hours based on the schedules that we have, right?
Mm.
Or something
Yeah.
like that. And, maybe it's something else. Maybe in conversations with your partner,
Oh
you
yeah, that's
say, yeah, maybe you say, if I'm in a conversation with my partner and yelling happens, or I start to feel invalidated, I will
Mm.
say, hey, let's take 15 minutes and try to calm down and then come back to this. Or one of my favorites is, hey, let's put a pin on this. I think we're both like super head up about this right now. How about we come back to this 2 nights from now at dinner and talk about it then? And in the meantime, maybe we can email back and forth with some thoughts so we have some like really important points for both of us to talk about when we do talk about it. And maybe we won't get
Mhm.
all caught up in how bad we feel about being in this argument.
That's a good idea.
Right. So
Yeah.
creating boundaries is really about focusing on yourself and creating the most positive priorities for yourself. And with your partner, if you're in a partnership now, with your partner, collaborating on creating the best life possible for both of you as
Mhm.
individuals and collaboratively in a couple. Because I believe that couplehood should serve the individuals and not the other way around.
Okay.
Being a couple should add value to both of your lives. Both of you should not be slaves to making that couplehood work.
Oh man, yeah. When it's compromising too much at times, because
Oh,
sometimes we're
yeah.
compromising too much, and I'm at a point where it's like I can't compromise like that. Not with a lot of some things that I want to do. So I think that's a big issue too in relationships is finding that compromise because somebody might be the alpha and then somebody might not. Was it not be the alpha? But it's like at the same time, it's like they still have to get their needs met, and they're sitting there like a little mouse. It's like no, we can't let the alpha keep running. We have to figure out a common ground, like you said, and rather it's talking once a week or something, you know,
If you
because
have if you have somebody who tends to be like I use the term dominant, you tend to, who tends to be the more dominant
yeah,
personality, right?
yeah,
And you have somebody who tends to be the more submissive personality. The
yeah,
challenge with that is, from my perspective, is that somebody who is a good dominant personality will recognize that they have that strength and they will focus on drawing out what the submissive personality needs in a relationship to make it work for both of them.
mm,
Because otherwise, okay, so in my book, I have a chapter called It Is Not Your Fault. It
mm,
is not your fault you have craptaculous boundaries. We were raised to do what our parents told us to do what our teachers told us to fit
mm-hmm,
into the popular or the in groups or whatever group we ended up identifying with, right? To go along, to get along, to, learn these 5 ways to please your partner so that they don't leave you for somebody else or whatever it is, right? We
mm-hmm,
have been taught that we are generally here to serve others. For women, that generally means caretaking and love and often sex, right?
mm-hmm,
And for men, that usually means being a provider and a protector. And
mm-hmm,
regardless of who you are, you get caught up in these roles and you can give and give and give, and the takers will just keep taking, taking, taking. And if you try to stand up for yourself, you get this whole, why are you being selfish now? That's not how
mm-hmm,
you've been. Why are you being so mean? Right?
mm-hmm,
Because your family told you all this because they want you to make it in the world, because they love you. The people
mm,
that you've had in your relationships in your life, maybe they did it because they love you, and maybe they did it because they were benefiting from your relationships, right? And you
Yep.
giving, 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 giving. So if you're giving everything, that other person, they either want to hear how they can raise you up as well so that you don't burn out, or they don't.
Mm.
Right?
See
It's that simple. Literally
that
that
fact.
simple. Do you, like, if I tend to be the dominant personality in my relationships. I'm a strong personality, right? And it is important to me to ask my partners, "Hey, is this working for you? Hey, what
Mm.
do you need right? You've had a rough day, would you like a little like,
Yep.
smooth things out a bit? Or do you just want a night where we're sitting and you watch TV and, drink a beer and I'll put my toes on you and read next to you?" Like,
Yeah.
it's important, if you are the person who has that strong personality, or in some cases, maybe you're just the best communicator or whatever, to also ask, yes, get what you need. But if you're in a relationship, then you want them to get what they need as well, so they can
Mhm.
keep providing you what you need, so that you can give them what they need. And
Yep.
so for me, my definition of a successful relationship is two people getting far more out of the relationship than they put in. So,
Mm.
what this means is, let's say you're getting ready for a date night out with your partner, right? And they walk by you in, like, the hallway or in the bathroom, and they just, tap your bottom and they tell you, I am
Oh.
looking forward to showing you off tonight, right?
Yep.
That is so simple. It takes what, a couple seconds,
Yeah, that's sweet.
but it fills you up, right?
Yes.
So they give a little tiny bit for a moment and they fill you up for hours.
Mhm.
That is how a successful relationship works. You look at
Mhm.
the ways that you can make each other happy because you want to.
Yes.
And the way that works is both of you coming to the relationship with good boundaries, because that means you know yourself, you know your priorities, and you can tell each other what makes you happy. And mm, I, sugar tits? Oh no, I don't. That one's not gonna work for me. You can call me boo, you can call me lovey smooch, you can call me all sorts of things, but sugar tits is a no-go. And they're like, "You know
No.
what? I'm not gonna call you sugar tits because that's not gonna get me some good
Mhm.
enough," right? Like, super simple.
Yep. No, I totally agree with that. And I think it also takes a healthy dose of emotional intelligence from both parties. Because if we both emotionally intelligent, we can
Yeah.
tap into each other. We can say, okay, he don't really like this, so let me pull back this way, and then she don't really like this, let me pull. I think that's important, and that's what people need to focus on. That comes with loving yourself and loving what you're doing, because everything goes in on whatever you're going through is going in on the relationship. So if it's a job, you don't like your job, you taking it out because you ain't really get to do what you want to do. You're not doing what you want to do every day. So you're taking it out on that person. And that's the thing too, because jobs, you have to have boundaries with jobs too.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have to, and that's a whole other topic too. And that's one thing too. You gotta have boundaries with jobs because you can't work all night and stuff, and you gotta be willing to walk away so you can be able to really think and to cultivate your relationships, right?
100%. And that's one of the reasons that I actually do talk about work boundaries in my book, is because your work boundaries affect your whole life, right? And your
Hmm.
relationships. If you
Yes.
cannot set a boundary on how much time you work,
Hmm.
then are you going to have enough time to even maintain that relationship?
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's why tell people leave, find a new job, and just and you can't just quit automatically, but just try because you want to have that good relationship. And then also with family, like how do you, some people that have issues with family boundaries, right? Like, what if you don't want to answer a question? You at Thanksgiving, because I don't know if you've
Mhm.
seen the TikTok trend. Oh, here we go, Thanksgiving. I got to answer a
Oh,
question I
geez.
want to ask. Like, how do people be like, I don't want to talk about that? you know,
Mhm.
to their family without being disrespectful?
There are a couple of ways. So, one thing I say is just saying, hey, I'm maybe starting before Thanksgiving and saying, hey, I'm looking forward to dinner. Don't ask me this at the Thanksgiving table. Don't
Mhm.
put me on the spot in front of everyone. Like,
Mhm.
don't do that. That's an option. Also, you know, hey, I'd really rather not talk about that right now. How about, you pass me some of that gravy?
Mhm. I love it.
Also, though, um, so I'm this is a funny story. So I'm writing this book and I write all these chapters. And then I realize that I'm writing so much in this book that I'm writing a textbook and nobody's going to read it. So I have to go back and I have to prune it out. And one of the chapters I take out, I leave some in because I think it's important to have boundaries around lies and lying. And that's part of emotional boundaries. But
Mhm.
I had written a lot about lies and lying in this book. So I'm taking it and I'm
Mm.
polishing it up and I'm going to put in a much shorter book called
Mm.
When, Not If They Lie, lies and lying in relationships and how to live a life full of love and trust. So
Mm.
there's a way to deflect by telling the truth and not the whole truth. So plan
Mm.
your truth going into Thanksgiving dinner. So
Mm.
let's say, for example, I've taught in alternative lifestyles, right? So I know kinky people, non-monogamous people,
Mm.
whatever. So let's say somebody went out to, like one of those kinky BDSM parties
Mm.
over the weekend, right? And so their parents, they're having dinner with their parents on Sunday evening, and their parents are like, "So, what did you do Friday night?"
Oh.
This is when you say, well, I met some friends out for dinner and then we went out to a club. We had an amazing time. And, I slept in until noon on Saturday.
Mm.
Not a lie. That is critical, right?
Mm.
You're not preparing
Yeah.
to lie to anybody. You are just telling the truth that you're willing to tell them.
Mm. I like
That
that.
I think is key because a lot of people, like,
Yeah.
the last thing they want is to have to lie in order to protect their hearts and their privacy and their minds and
Mm.
whatever. Um, so yeah, that's how I would do stuff like that is,
I
first
like
I would
that.
just say, I would try ahead of time, please don't do this to me. If they don't listen or if I don't think of doing it ahead of time and they bring it up at the table, I would say, okay, I'd really rather not talk about that. And if I've thought about it enough ahead of time, I've planned something that I can,
There we
throw out.
go. I like that, planning it out,
Yeah.
because you can sit there, because they always say it's okay to lie, but don't lie to yourself. That was a quote I really like. But you can just say it in the way that you feel comfortable saying it.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't really like talking about my job and stuff during Thanksgiving. It's like, who wants to talk about job? I'm off work. So I might
Yeah.
just say, hey, job is jobbing. I say stuff like that. The
Yeah,
job
like
is
job
jobbing.
is jobbing, I've had maybe have one story from work,
Yeah.
like a kind of funny, maybe I succeeded type
Yeah.
story. Be ready to tell that story and
Mhm.
then change the topic. Make sure in that story you like, oh, and then now I can pass it off to Uncle so and so because da 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 da, right? Like be
Mm.
ready. To me, all of this is about your power, right?
Mm.
Setting your boundaries and preparing. One of the things I talk about in my workshop. So I
Mm.
have the book, Take No Shit. I have the app, Take No Star, 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 Star. I have the workshop, Take No Shit, and I do private one on one coaching. In
Mm.
the workshop, one of the things we talk about is some people aren't going to be great with boundaries. They've got trauma or abuse in their life and they really need like just a little more hand holding, which is why the workshop exists.
Yeah.
And in the workshop, we do two things. One, I suggest that workshoppers connect with each other and they write out from their past a conversation about when one of their boundaries was stomped.
Mm.
And they write it out and they read it to each other. Each person takes a part, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
read it to each other and they go through it a couple of times. And then the other person, the person who stomps the boundary, starts changing some of the words, right?
Mm.
And this person gets the opportunity to start like reacting to those different words. That's one thing that we do. The other thing that we do is I talk about getting together with either other members of the workshop or with me, and we'll talk about some of your boundaries and we will put rules in place for you,
Mm.
right? So
Mm.
some people might not be able to say, oh, I'm going to do this and then do it. But if you said, okay, Heather, I'm going to do this the next time, and I will tell you, 3 days after Thanksgiving, how it went,
Ah, okay.
then you've kind of got like that booster of you've got a cheerleader in your court, you got somebody who's waiting to hear like how you did it, who's going to cheer you
Mm-hmm.
on. And instead of doing it for yourself, you're like, okay, I'm going to do it for them because I crumble.
I like that. I like
Right?
that. And
So
that
do
helps.
it with your girls or your guys or, like
Mm.
whatever.
Yeah, because that helps people that's socially awkward too.
Yes.
The socially awkward crew.
Yeah.
That pause, be like, huh? That
That's a
helps to
lot of my
have that
coaching.
coach.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I love that you have that because sometimes I'll freeze. I'm older now, so I kind of got more of a F it type mentality. I'm just
Mhm.
gonna tell you like it is or
Yeah.
so, but there's still, some people have those moments of just that social anxiety, the imposter syndrome, the
Mhm.
neurodivergency that everybody's talking about now. And I think it
Ooh.
helps to have a coach neurodivergency is a big thing in tech because I'm in tech. So you always hear neurodivergent or you'll
So
hear imposter syndrome.
I'm really excited to tell you this. So I'm working with Briar Harvey starting next month on a series called The Neurospicy Guide to Dating. And it's all about not about specific neurodivergencies. We're not going to talk specifically about autism or specifically about ADHD. We're going to talk
Mm-hmm.
about the experiences, like that pause or anxiety or rejection sensitivity disorder. We're going to talk about those things. We're going to talk about the symptoms of neurodiversity in dating and how we can overcome those when we're engaging with people.
Oh snap! You need to come back on here and tell me how that go for real because I have ADHD. So for me,
Oh, yeah.
I learned how to maintain it better, but like I can listen now and hear things through. But for some people, it might still be a struggle. So it's like, oh man, because that could seem kind of odd on a date or something like that, where you're just I can jump from top to topic. That's just me. And
And
so it's
it's great when you find somebody else who can jump with you
yeah.
and pull back the conversation. So, like, one of the things I
Mm-hmm.
learned with my ADHD is to allow people to jump and to follow them. And then when they say, okay, I don't know where that was going, I say, we were talking about this. So now we can get back on this track,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot. And with my ADHD, one of the things, since you have it, one of the things that really helped me that is absolutely hilarious is when I met the partner I'm with now that I'm so deeply in love with, I actually put calendar reminders with alarms in my calendar to remind me to tell him that I love him.
Wow.
And over the years, I mean, 10 years, it has trained my brain to remember to say things like that regularly, so much so that I was sitting here one day looking across and he was just sitting there looking like a snack. And I looked over at him and I said, hey, baby. And he said, yeah. And I said, have I told you lately that I love you? And he looks at me dead in the eyes and says, without even a smile, he said, did your calendar reminder just go off? I'm like, I don't use those anymore.
Hilarious. That's hilarious. That is good though. That's a good idea because then that muscle memory what kicks in, right?
Mhm. Yep.
I love
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Yeah. So before I know we coming up on time. I just
Yes.
have this boundaries is a big topic for me because I've
Mhm.
so many things. But yeah, we got to do a part two for when you do the neurodivergent
Yeah.
session, so you can come back, talk about it, give some, because a lot of people are struggling with dating right now, and even friendships are on a struggle bus. So I want you
The
to come
struggle
back
bus
on.
is real, especially after we just went through COVID. A lot of us stayed in with our own minds,
Mm-hmm.
right? And coming out, I see a lot of people having a really hard time finding that reconnection.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so we're going to be doing this. It'll start in November. I think we're going to do
November.
like
Okay.
one sort of like installment a month for like 10 months.
Mm.
And everything will be, sort of like looking at different parts of dating and then the struggles we can have.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah, let me send me the link when you do that. I'm gonna
Oh
watch and
yeah.
support. I might even do a podcast review or something on it because these are important topics to me.
Huge.
So before we close out, well, actually, you know what? I always ask people, what's a quote or saying you go by?
Um, do what works.
Mm.
That's like what works for me is not going to be what works for you. Right? So what my
Mm-hmm.
boundaries are not going to be your boundaries. And don't let anybody tell you that you can't do what works for you and the people that you love just because they don't like it.
Ooh, ooh. I like that because be look, can you keep saying stuff to make me talk. Me being an introvert, I
Uh-huh.
love a glass of wine, red wine, put my feet up, watching a movie. They be like, "Oh, you're too young. You should be out. Why are you're all over the place?" I'm fine with my glass of red wine in my movie. Like, what did I do wrong? Do I like going to a museum, certain bars, or something like that? Sometimes, yes, but it's very rare. It's like an anomaly for me. I'm okay with just chilling in the house. I can read a book and have a good time. I grew up on movies, I grew up on shows, and I like doing that. And I think that sometimes people would push their life on you,
That's
their
true.
boundaries on you. Like, oh, you gotta do this. You don't have to do that.
I think part of it is that they feel like if you're not doing the same thing they are, then they
Yeah.
might be wrong. And
Ooh.
my partner and I, like, I'm an ambivert. I like to be out around people. I miss it if I don't do it often enough, but I also
Mm.
like to recharge on my own. He's like a super extrovert. He could be out like 7
Mm.
nights a week and be fine. You know what?
Oof.
That's okay. He
Mm-hmm.
goes out, I do what I want to do, right? And we come back together. We set date nights to make sure that we have time together. And sometimes he drags me out and I'm happy for it. And this is good, right? But he and I don't have to be attached at the hip in order to be in
Mm-hmm.
love.
There we go. I like that. And that's true for friendship too and
Oh,
family. If you
yes.
want to do something else, it's okay. Still love you. I'm just doing this because I want to do this, and that's okay. I like that. I like that, man. You're truly tapped in. I had such a great time talking to you.
Thank
Truly tapped in.
you.
And I'm gonna definitely share this everywhere so people can learn to respect people's boundaries and what they like to do and understand, you know. So I'm excited. Just we can do a part two. Just email me, remind me, because
Well done.
woo.
ADHD,
But
I get it.
yeah, I get so many people coming, and I'm trying to get people off pod match right. So so definitely remind me, because I want to keep talking about this. I want to keep pushing the envelope with this, and I want to thank you for coming on here, and I want to thank all my fans for watching. Please subscribe, share, and be safe this weekend, y'all. Peace.